First of all, a very warm welcome from my side. I'm Julia Schmidt. I'm a policy analyst at Paris 21, and it's my honor today to moderate this task team and welcome you all for the first meeting of the task team on coordinating strategically with key partners. Let me also introduce the co-moderator and MC, Benji. Please, the floor is yours from PSA, from the Philippine Statistical Authority.
Hello. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. So as mentioned by Julia, I'm Benji Navarro from the Philippine Statistics Authority, and I'm glad to see all of you for this meeting. So back to you, Julia.
Thank you, Benji. So we will co-emceeing this meeting today, and we're very excited to go with you on a little journey on coordination and statistics. Let me quickly show you what's the plan for today, just as a recap on the agenda. And then we start the meeting with some inputs from a couple of different speakers. So if you can see my screen, we will start today with a round of welcome from François Fontenot. There will be a tour de table. That's why we spent some time here, so we can all get to know each other and everyone can introduce herself or himself and tell us a bit about your expectations ahead of the meeting. Then Dr. Dennis Mapa, the National Statistician of the Philippines, will set the scene with a keynote on the need for coordinated data systems in 2020. After that, Guillermo Zapala, my colleague at Paris 21 and myself, we will give you a quick spotlight on coordination definitions, levels and actors, also linking to the background note that has been circulated before. And then we really would like to move into a more interactive part of the meeting, breaking out in discussion groups and smaller groups. So you will be split up in groups of 6 around roughly, and we will discuss coordination bottlenecks and problems and structure our thinking around them. I will explain more later throughout the meeting, but this is just to know, and we will have a discussion all together then for another 30 minutes in the plenary before we conclude the meeting and discuss a couple of steps and the way forward. And I think with this, I would like to hand the floor or give the floor to François Fontenot. He's the deputy head of Paris 21, and he's here with us to kick us off. François, the floor is yours. We can see the slides, that's perfect.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues and friends. As you can see, 6 months in the confinement, I'm still unable to unmute myself in less than 30 seconds. So that's a perfect start for everyone to feel at ease. So thank you very much, first of all, for making yourself available for this series of discussion. We really value your time and we appreciate your adaptability to the last minute change in terms of timing. So thank you very much for being here today. A very warm welcome as well to the colleagues from the PSA in the Philippines. And special thanks to the DG, Dennis Mapa, and Benji and Vera, who have been wonderful colleagues to put this together. Why are we here to discuss coordination at this very moment? Maybe some of you or your colleagues may think we don't have anything better to discuss at this time of COVID-19, and we actually had to postpone a bit the opening of the discussions because of the heat of the urgency some months back. But let me maybe start before we zoom in a bit in the deliverables and the actual mandate of this task team. Let me give a bit of background, and I'm trying to see my slides. Are they moving here?
Not yet. Can you try again?
Okay.
If you like, I can just try to share them, François.
That would be most useful, I think.
Okay, you have to stop it, stop sharing.
So why in a moment we'll see the slides. Why coordination today? We have heard from a wonderful survey done together by the UNSD, the United Nations Statistics Division, and the World Bank in the summer. Why coordination was still a problem. We heard from national statistical offices around the world that coordination was a problem for roughly 20% of them. And you know, this rang a bell with Paris 21 that yes, indeed, we still have a problem with coordination, but it seems 80% of the countries have found solutions and don't mention coordination as the most burning issue in their landscaping. At the same time, that same survey told us that there were huge disparities in terms of geographies for that concern around coordination. And in particular, some regions in Africa, Oceania, the Pacific, cited coordination as a much more burning issue than in other parts of the world. That was for, you know, the survey from this summer. As many of you know, because you've been associated with our activities in Paris 21 for quite some time, we've been looking into the topic of coordination for quite some time. And the results here, and apologies if the font is a bit small, tell us a very interesting story about what explains in parts the challenges of coordination. And that's a survey we ourselves have been running together with some partners on the mere topic of coordination in late 2019. And we reached out to about 140 national statistical offices around the world, mostly you know, non-OECD countries. And we asked them, what are the main challenges to coordination in your national statistical systems? And they came with some very interesting stories to us. This blue line, these red lines, and these gray lines stand for different levels of problems. In blue, you have problems at the individual level. In red, you have problems at the organization level, and in gray, at the system level. And you can see very clearly that the main challenge which comes to mind to NSOs is really the lack of capacity, and that's the blue line. That comes first. But very close comes the challenges at organization level, and they include such things like the lack of clear mandate or explicit roles and fuzziness around who should be doing what. And then at systemic level, you also have issues around the law, which also the statistic law, which also in many instances does not enable the system to work that smoothly. So that's about the why we do it now and how we understand the challenges around coordination. We also asked you in the last weeks to share with us what were your most urgent coordination problems, and some of you were kind enough to come with some wonderful lessons and elements for our consideration. And we tried to group these stories which you've told us along the data value chain. For those of you who don't know the data value chain, it's a conceptual framework which starts with data preparation, data planning, data production, data dissemination, data use to then investment in data systems again. So what the stories are is that the coordination problems for this community, for us in this task team, are really spread wide across the data value chain. So many of you mentioned SDG alignment as the most urgent coordination problem. Alignment of international and national frameworks were also a source of concerns for many of us. Then in terms of data production, several of you mentioned the gaps or overlaps in data production, which are also high on your agenda. And and then very much associated to this narrative on gaps and overlaps the ability to fill those gaps through new data sources. So again, the legal framework associated to this. At dissemination level, some of you came with the multiplication of portals, data portals, which is a long-standing issue, and which leads to high data user dissatisfaction. In terms of use, of course, problems associated around the comparability of different data sources, which comes with a high cost in terms of trust in the system and eventual uptake of the data. And many of you, several NSOs came obviously with the questions on investment and the long-standing question on donor-driven priorities and the allocation of domestic funding in the NSS. So if we were hopeful to come with 2-3 problems, we again came up, thanks to your wide landscaping, with a collection of very acute problems in the current modern data ecosystem. If I have the next slide, please, Julia. So why coordination now? What are the elements behind the challenges? I mean, there's a lot of different views depending who you are, where you sit, and what's your mandate. I think in terms of why coordination is desirable, there's much more convergence, and there are a wide array of different white papers to UN reports on why we should achieve this one, we took the example of the UNSD handbook, which is a bestseller in our community. That's the 2003 edition. It's being revamped currently, and it gives a pretty useful framework on why we should try to achieve and improve coordination. So obviously, comparability of the outcomes of the various data production exhausts in a given ecosystem, avoidance of duplication, and efficiency in terms of sourcing in information from respondents. And then 2 quite important elements as well on the profile of statistics, and in particular of official statistics. One expects the production to be highly understandable and usable, and if numbers from non-official data producers can somehow give a conflicting music, one has expectation that from the official statistical agencies there should be an effort to give a meaningful, nice orchestrated music, and then obviously, because it's the UN, the discussion is put again in the overall picture of the interest of the individual countries to coordinate statistics for the overall discussions of the country priorities. So I think this gives us this leaves us with a good framework of why we should desire to enhance coordination, and this could somehow also gives us an overall framing for our discussion. So we have a task team, and again, the task team is all of us. I think we are 27 right now. Several of us came from the same institution. We're all very grateful for those institutions who come in numbers and show their interest for the topic. We have about 20 members from national statistical offices, from international organizations, from regional commissions, from NGOs, and from the academia. So that sounds very much like a family photo of Paris 21, where we are typically engaging different communities around topics of joint interest and try to get to some common understanding from different perspectives. We know how busy you are, and we wanted this to be sweet and short to the extent possible. I think coordination is a topic which we can venture on for another 25 years. We'll keep it short, and we are planning to have 3 roundtables, all virtual. So this one being the first one, December and one in March. So 3 check-in points. In between these 3 meetings, you will have the chance to have a wonderful secretariat to continue a bit the homework and deep dive into some of the topics and a bit of research. And this will be my colleagues here in Paris 21 and the colleagues at PSA as well, who will take on board some of the discussions, explore a bit more, and add value to this discussion. As I mentioned from the very beginning, this task team is co-chaired by PSA and Paris 21. In terms of specific objectives, and that's to make everyone clear and comfortable, and you may want to comment if you have any questions or disagreement with some of these objectives. This was actually shared with within the terms of reference when we invited you to join the task team. We have 4 objectives, which we try to be as specific as possible. One is to really learn from each other. When we wanted to reopen the topic of coordination in 2020, we thought it would be absolutely essential to work on it from a task team perspective and a collegial perspective. One of our key partners in Paris 21, Eurostat, who is actually a member of this task team, not present here today, but will be joining us next meetings, is funding us to advance this agenda and to understand better how coordination works today, what are the elements to make it work, and to propose action-oriented solutions to enhance and develop capacities in NSOs or other public agencies to improve coordination. So we want to co-design those learning, co-design those solutions, and make them as acceptable to partners as possible. So that's why we are here together. Obviously, when one talks coordination comes the definition of coordination. Some of you have read the background note which we shared, which propose some literature review and some scoping of the different definitions on coordination. There are tens of different coordination definitions. So we shall try to come with some understanding of joint understanding of what coordination means today and what the capacity to coordinate is today. Third objective really is to identify the mechanisms and enablers of coordination capacity. So what are those things, what are those tools, what are those strategies that strengthen coordination capacity at different levels? And some of these discussions we'll be having in the task team will be specifically oriented to solutions. Today, really much, as you've understood from the agenda, really much the discussion is about onboarding everyone, discussing what the key problems are, and coming with some groupings on the problems. The next meeting will be all about solutions and how one can document those solutions to scale them. And the last point on our plate, really, and that can be for a bit later, and this would be certainly an element where the secretariat of the task team would hold the pen quite extensively. We would like to propose a few indicators of the capacity to coordinate. And interestingly enough, there are no such widely accepted indicators on the capacity to coordinate, maybe because there's no clear-cut definition. But I mentioned this discussion we have with Eurostat on improving coordination in LDCs. We were looking for evidence on where the problem was the most acute, and the fact is there's no real well accepted benchmarks on coordination. So we would like to propose a small number of decent indicators to really measure and track progress in terms of coordination capacity. With these 4 objectives, we have 3 deliverables in mind. Again, your role is really ideation and brainstorming and sharing ideas and perspectives, and you'll be supported in this endeavor by the Secretariat. So you should not worry that we will ask you to write papers and submit and add to your busy agenda. But overall, what we are aiming at for the task team is to be developing a note on the definition of strategic coordination and the capacity to coordinate. And we see this note, the first draft has been shared in advance to this meeting, and we would like to see this note evolve into the final product. And we welcome very much your direct input to the framing of the note, and we'll try to give justice to all your comments and advice in the course of our discussions to feed this note so we can publish it at the end of the task team and have this as a legacy of our discussions. We'd like to have a more practical, action-oriented set of outputs around the drivers and the mechanisms of behind coordination capacity. And again, with an aim to help NSOs strengthen those capacities and identify those drivers in their context. And then last, these 5 or so indicators on strategic coordination, which we would like to give visibility to after proper testing through our own platform and through the arrangements we have with the World Bank Statistical Performance Indicator. Again, everyone talks about capacity or stewardship. It's not properly defined and it's not measured, and we think this would add a big deal of difference if we can add a bit on that front. Next slide, please, Julia. So I'll stop in a second, and thanks for your patience. These are who we are, right? So we wanted to shoot that slide a bit up front of the tour de table. The idea really is that all these distinguished members have accepted to be part of the journey. Some of them are not around the table for meeting 1, but they will catch up right after. So you see, you have Statistics Canada. I mean, I think we just move to the tour de table. So I'd like to invite every one of you to introduce yourself, please. Be as talkative as possible, not when you give your name or your stories, but in the course of the task team meeting, this one and the next ones. We see really, we want this to be as participatory as possible. That's why we have put some group works to allow for a bit of enhanced interactions. So if we could be kind enough to give your name and function. For those of you who have been associated with Paris 21 or PSA in the recent past, that would be lovely to hear an anecdote on your past experience as an icebreaker. And if you could give us one expectation for this group and which matters to your own mandate or business. So that's the three things we would like to hear from you. And I suggest, we could go in order as we see things. Mustafa, why don't you start?
Okay, thanks, Francois. My name is Mustafa Dinç. I've been working at the World Bank for 22 years now. And of these 22 years, I've been working with the statistical capacity improvement projects around 17 years now in different places, in different countries. I've been leading this capacity improvement team in the bank in development data group. I had significant experience in these different countries in terms of coordination and cooperation within the agency, within the national statistical offices, and between data producing agencies in the national statistical, as part of the national statistical systems there. So then that's the reason I was kind of privileged to be part of this task team, because over the years, this is what I have observed, as Francois nicely presented in this presentation, all the problems regarding the coordination, cooperation. That's not just limited to national statistical system. We can see the same coordination, cooperation problems among international organizations and donor community. So that's my experience over the years. And we've been working with Paris 21 from the very beginning, I think I've been involved in this 1999, at the early days of the Paris 21. At that time, we had this trust fund for capacity building. I was the administrator of this trust fund. Paris 21 was one of the kind of main partners there. We used to get together and present our reports, progress reports. And after that, over the years, we've been coordinating and cooperating with Paris 21 about the capacity indicator, and recently on the statistical performance index we're working to develop. My expectation from this task team, it's a good question. I mean, we expect too much, and most of the time we don't get it. And if we can come up with some kind of mechanism that will help our member countries to better coordinate, better cooperate, as well as among international organizations, regardless of signing MOUs, but in practice, in the field, carry out these MOUs and coordinate better and provide better support to these countries. And perhaps another expectation, if we can come up with a good indicator, how to measure, how to benchmark these coordination problems in countries, perhaps then we can include this in these indicators, or one of these indicators, in our statistical performance index we're developing. So it will help everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mustafa. I'd like to give maybe the floor to Stefan and then Kara, because I understand both of you will need to leave us, unfortunately, at some point. So Stefan, you have the floor.
Great, thanks so much, Francois. Yeah, and I apologize for having to leave earlier. I'm kind of double booked, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm Stefan Verhulst. I'm the co-founder of GovLab, which is an action research center based here in New York. And we are part of New York University, the engineering school. And our focus and mission is to look into how do we change the way we make decisions in the public interest, leveraging new tools, new technologies, and obviously data is one of the core areas that we focus on how can we unlock and leverage data in order to improve the way we go about making decisions across a variety of areas. Now, one of the areas that we have somewhat developed or pioneered is the area of how do we collaborate and unlock private sector data in order to also improve the way we go about making decisions. And so here we developed this concept of data collaboratives, which we believe are the new kind of public-private partnerships to actually establish coordination across different actors within the public and the private sector, and quite often also academia. And so we have developed a whole range of data collaboratives, and we also have developed a research agenda in order to understand what works and what does not work, and especially how do we coordinate across different players, because it might be hard to coordinate within government. If you then add a few players, such as private sector players, then it becomes quite challenging to even understand who you should talk to in order to get a sign-off with regard to decisions. And that was also the topic of a paper I wrote together with some colleagues at Paris 21 a few years back, which was really looking into alternative data for statistics. Now, a few issues that I do, and I can tell you the anecdote of, anyway, the first meeting not being able to show up because I was at the wrong OECD building, which I'm sure many of you might have experienced, knowing that there are not one, but several OECD buildings spread across Paris. At least it improved my understanding of the Paris subway system. But I think a few things that I do want to raise as well, especially because I'm going to have to leave, and I just want to plant a few seeds, and also perhaps share a few links that might be useful to, anyway, as background, hopefully not background noise, but perhaps background material. One of the things that we have identified as an area where coordination is extremely important and prioritization is extremely important, because it determines coordination across the data lifecycle and the value chain that Francois had presented, is actually coordination with regard to the questions that one seeks to answer. And because if you have a misalignment with regard to what are the questions, or what are the, anyway, what's the use case, it's very hard to have coordination down the line, because ultimately there is no sense of prioritization. And so what we have been trying to do the last few months is to develop a new methodology that would allow us to identify what we call the 100 questions that matter to society that have not been answered yet, but could be answered if we find a way to coordinate and unlock data assets towards those ends. Obviously, SDGs has a similar kind of effort, but I think what we've tried to do was to really focus on a participatory way of sharing questions, prioritizing those questions, and then ultimately developing collaboratives in coordination efforts around how do we make progress vis-a-vis those questions. And I got to put this in the Slack, some links. The other element I want to raise, and then I'm going to shut up, Francois, because I'm sensitive to the time here that I'm taking from others, is quite often coordination is a challenge of also identifying who actually is in charge of coordination. Is anyone in charge of coordination? And so here we've been working with a whole range of actors in order to establish a new position, which we believe is necessary, especially in an environment where you want to coordinate and collaborate with different actors. And we call that position, which is not a new term, but we kind of we try to redefine the position, which we call the chief data steward, which are, and it doesn't have to be one, it could be several, and it doesn't have to be a dedicated function, it could be a role. But I think absent that kind of data stewardship role, it's very hard to even identify who should be engaged in the coordination effort. And it's also very hard to actually have a coordinating strategy if there is no kind of dedicated function to coordination, because we're all very busy, and coordination actually does take a lot of engagement, and that requires quite often a dedicated function as well. So, oops, I sent a thing privately to Mustafa for one reason or another. Let me send it to everyone. Here we go. And then you can access those links. And again, I apologize for not being able to be part of the further convenings, but I definitely will hopefully schedule my time better in the near future.
Thank you, Stefan. Very, very useful. And we certainly love your work in Paris Saint-Germain. I'm sure other task team members are also appreciative of how you frame the problems and solutions at your lab. So thanks very much. I'd like to give the floor to Cara Williams from StatCan.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Very well, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you for asking me to join this task team, and I am very sorry that I have to leave a little bit early. I have another appointment. So working with international means that the mornings in North America are completely jam-packed because everything in Europe and Africa and Asia, it's so much later. So our mornings start very early and they're very packed. So I'm Cara Williams, and I'm with Statistics Canada, and I've been with Statistics Canada for almost 25 years now. And I've been working in international for about 6 years. And so I'm going to come at this from both the international perspective, not necessarily the donor, because although Canada is a donor, StatCan is an executing agency, so we provide technical assistance, but I'm also going to talk about a little bit about and think about it internally, how to coordinate within the national statistical system, because that also is a challenge, and you've elaborated a bit on that. And so for me, it's not just about coordinating in our projects, which is really important on our statistical capacity building, and you know, we've got some practices that we've now put in place to try and better coordinate with the other donors in the region, but also within our own national statistical system. And I'll echo a bit what Stefan said. It's really about that data stewardship role and how important that kind of role is. And our belief at Statistics Canada is the National Statistics Office needs to take that data stewardship role, whether they're named formally as a chief data steward or not. In Canada, what they have done is every department has a chief data officer. So although StatCan is not the chief data steward for all of the government of Canada, we've helped all of the departments develop data strategies to help them have better quality and understand the coordination better. And I think that's the key in domestically is actually naming someone who's a data steward or a data officer in each department, so that you can actually find ways into the department to talk to them and to have a conversation with people who also are producing data, because often if you're talking in the policy departments, you're talking to policymakers and not the data people. And so they often don't understand that. So it's about finding the doors, having someone who is named as a data officer in each of the departments, and then leveraging that to move forward. And so for my expectations for the group is, you know, I always have had this hope in talking internationally now, statistical capacity building, that we could coordinate everything and it would be perfect and seamless between organizations that are providing statistical capacity building, and even domestically within the national statistical system. But now I'm not quite that naive. So, you know, I think what we need to hope for is progress. And so we need to ensure that perfection doesn't get in the way of good. So if we can make some progress on coordination and we can demonstrate and have cases where we are demonstrating this works, I think then, you know, it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It will get bigger and bigger. So my hope is we make some progress and that we don't strive for perfection, but we go for progress. Thanks.
Thank you, Cara. That's really useful expectations. And thanks to both Stefan and Cara, who have to leave to have front-loaded a bit their expectations and give a lot of food for thoughts already. I'd like to continue with Hoike. And apologies for any mispronunciations of names in advance.
It's no problem at all. You just say, how can you pronounce it? And then you drop the N, you pronounce it, and then you're with Hauke. Thanks for having me in this group. Hello to everybody. My name is Hauke Hartmann. I come from the Bertelsmann Foundation, which is one of the largest German private foundations. And I'm the director of the Transformation Index that is measuring the status of economic, political, and social development in 137 developing and transformation countries with more than 1 million inhabitants. And that is also having a look at the quality of governance. And I coordinate a network of 320 country, regional, and international experts involved in the process from more than 120 countries. And it is an expert-based assessment. So probably the nightmare of some of you that are working with hard quantitative data. I have to check the timeliness, the reliability, and the comparability of the 5,000 pages of country reports that I get delivered every second year, and also the timeliness, reliability, and comparability of data that is derived out of that. And the BTI, the Transformation Index, is both a data user and a data producer. So we are not only producing ourselves data that we put out on the market for the World Bank governance indicators, or for Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index and the EPRAM Index on African Governance, and so on and so on. But we are also using data. And this is where it gets really interesting for us, because again, we try to use data as external reference indicators that are comparable on an international scale and to some degree reliable. But we find that when we're using World Bank or IMF or a Human Development Index, we often stumble across indicators that are outdated, questionable in their reliability, or do not have enough coverage. So we have to resort to the second or third or fourth best indicator and not pick the best one because we do not have the data, which leads us to think that there is a lot of admirable work done by national statistical offices, and which very much tempts me to have a closer look at that work and to see how actually comparability can be achieved. And that has a lot to do with coordination. And that would be spelling me out my expectations that I would have to learn more about the work, and also see how that can be coordinated in a way that there is an increase in reliability, and especially an increase in international comparability. I'd be curious to learn more. Thank you.
Fantastic, and no pressure on us to put indicators which you could then potentially reuse. Lovely. Could I ask Gemma, maybe?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Francois. My name is Gemma Van Halderen. I'm the director of the Statistics Division in the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific. It's a regional United Nations body based in Bangkok. So good evening to everybody. I have nothing except very positive interactions with Paris 21 over a very long career. First of all, working for the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and now for the last few years working with the United Nations. So I always find Paris 21's contributions to the statistical development, statistical capacity development is always a real pleasure, and very, very positive contribution. I'm coming to this group with two expectations, or two hopes, ambitions in mind. The first one is that the issue of coordination across the national statistical system, and increasingly across a national data system, and trying to get a better understanding of what that might mean, and therefore be able to help the 58 odd countries in Asia Pacific and connect the conversations happening here tonight and with this task team with the broader statistical community in Asia and the Pacific. The second ambition, or the second hope, I suppose, is to get a better understanding of what coordination, what countries think coordinations should mean, and therefore try and bring that conversation into the United Nations and development system itself across, because within the development community, both within the UN and broader OECD, Eurostat and so on, I think this conversation also needs to be had within the development community itself. Thank you very much, Francois. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Always great to have you, and you'll be continued pillar of our work, that's for sure. Can I ask Madior from Afristat? Madior, tu as la parole.
Thank you very much, Francois. My name is Madior Fall. I'm an international technical expert from Expertise France and posted at Afristat as advisor of the Director General. Formerly, I was from INSEE, French NSO, and Paris School of Economics. My field in statistics is social statistics, agricultural and environment statistics. Let me present a little bit Afristat. Afristat is an international organization who is working on capacity building. Afristat is Economic and Statistic Observatory of Sub-Saharan Africa. And what we have to do is mainly to work with the NSO for capacity building in many fields, like national accounts, social statistics, and so on. What I can say about the Paris 21, Paris 21 is our main partners in many fields. Essentially, when we are working on national development of system of statistics. And it's very important, but it's coordination. And it's mainly I think the main key of coordination. And in our experience, what we look is that coordination is, you have a lot of problems. And that's why it's very important to be in this task, because we have to explain what happened. The main problem for us is that when we are talking about, when we are working with countries, you have many, many partners. And there is a little, very, very few level of coordination. That's why I think this, this task group is very important for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madior. Very useful and fantastic to have Afristat's perspective as a coordinator of technical assistance for some of the poorest and low capacity NSOs and countries in West Africa. Excellent. Could I ask Babacar from Senegal?
Hello. I am Babacar Ndir. I am the Director General of the National Agency for Statistics and Demography, the NSO of Senegal. I work with Paris 21 in several areas, mainly in planning with the implementation, formulation and the implementation of the national strategy for the development of statistics, and also on effective leadership. And my expectation relate to best practices, tools, and also mechanisms that can improve statistical coordination, because in Senegal, our main weaknesses of our national statistic system is the statistical coordination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Babacar. I would like to call Priya from Singapore.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Priya from the Singapore Department of Statistics, and I'm really glad to be part of this group. I'm actually the Director of Communications and Engagement in Singapore, and I'm responsible for a number of areas. Data dissemination is my primary responsibility, but I'm also taking care of corporate engagement, regional and international relations. So, you know, coordination is a very, very important element of for all my areas of work. In Singapore, as you may know, we have a decentralized statistical system. So coordination among all the different data producers in Singapore agencies is a pretty tricky issue for us. And to get the data in a timely manner and to have to ensure that these data are fused together, cleaned together properly, and they're all comparable with international and regional standards. It's not an easy task. So indeed, we do emphasize coordination and the importance of getting all the stakeholders involved to buy into the issues that we are trying to address. So I'm really honored to be part of this task team and hope to be able to contribute. And also take back some key learnings, especially in terms of potential mechanisms to improve coordination among the different stakeholders, not just in terms of stakeholders in the public sector, but also in the private sector, because a lot of our new data sources are actually coming from private sector organizations and companies and individuals and even data aggregators who are out there. So indeed, this is a very good opportunity for us to Singapore to learn as well as contribute. I have not really had very much interactions with Paris 21, but our co-chair, PSA, is a very good partner for us in the ASEAN regional cooperation matters. So I'm very familiar with the PSA team and have been working very closely with Benji on some of the ASEAN coordinating committees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And very good idea from PSA indeed to suggest your name for the task team, and lovely to be working with you for the 3 next months. I'd like to call the colleagues from DANE Colombia. Maybe Juan Daniel is around. I can't see his name. I see Juliet.
Hello, everyone. My name is, sorry about the noise. It just happened on an airplane. So sorry for the noise. Just wait a moment, please.
It's good. It's a small airplane, it seems. It's not too loud.
Okay, perfect. So I'm the Technical Director of Regulation at the Colombia National Statistical Office, DANE. From this division of regulation, we manage the coordination of our national statistical system that is a decentralized system made up mostly of 118 entities, not only the producers of statistical information, but the entities that have administrative records. So from our division, we manage all the roles that DANE has in the system of statistical authority. So regarding the challenges and our participation in this task team, we are very glad because we are at the moment, we are launching our statistical planning for the next years. So we're right now at the moment, we need to convoke entities not only to plan and design, but to make and to implement all the tasks we establish in this route plan. So we are very glad to participate here because we are looking for a framework, and I think it's necessary to have an agreement in terms of what we are going to understand for coordination and how in countries that have this scheme of decentralized production, we are going to face all the challenges regarding not only the access of data, quality of data, implementation of classification and standards, but in terms of specific, the Colombian case, the challenges related with the diverse IT capacities of entities and these impose a lot of challenges to interoperate. So I hope we have a lot of rich discussions around all these topics and could agree in some indicators that allow us to make our performance as coordinator of our national statistical system and improve the way we're doing our work. So I'm very glad to be here. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Juliette. I understand we have Andres from DANE as well, right? And is Juan Daniel around?
Unfortunately, our general director couldn't make it for this task team. So we are several of us participating and connecting in the meeting, but we hope for the next meeting he could make it.
That's perfectly understood. Thank you, Juliette. Andres, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andres Guzman. I work as an advisor of the chief statistician at DANE Colombia. And I just wanted to add, Juliette has already introduced very well what DANE do in terms of coordination and the challenges that we have. I just wanted to add in terms of Paris 21 interaction and say that we have a lot of projects and ongoing activities that are strengthening our capacity, in particular one in terms of World Data Lab. And so we have a really good connection and really good relationship. And in terms of the expectatives, I think also in terms of not only contributing, but also to being able to define very abstract concepts that we are trying to applicate and utilize in the Colombian context, such as data stewardship, and those really rare concepts are a good expectation we have on the working group. So we're really pleased to be here, and we are really open to contribute and to participate actively. So thanks very much, Francois.
Thank you, Andres. Could I ask Serge, UNDP? I see you're back. You seem to be struggling a bit with connection.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Very well, thanks.
Thanks. Thank you, Francois. My name is Serge Cato. I'm with the SDG integration team in UNDP. It's a pleasure to be here. And also to introduce my colleague, Babatunde Abidoy, who has just joined our team in the SDG integration and is going to support the work of this task force. I have to say that it's really a great pleasure for me to see the continuation of this work. I remember that we started working with Paris 21 quite a few years back already on data ecosystems and trying to understand data ecosystems, as well as looking at the kind of new capacities that statistical offices need. That was the Capacity Development 4.0 work of Paris 21 that we co-led at some point. And it was indeed, I think, a continuation of that line of work where in the context of the SDGs and the renewed interest on data and new approaches to data, that we need to see what are these sort of new skills that national statisticians need to acquire to meet the expectations that are on them now. I think there's a significant amount of new expectations on the national statistical offices to actually play that role of coordination within the national statistical system and bring all the data stakeholders together, even those beyond the official statistical system. I think that's a role that's quite important. And I think as we were discussing at the time, that was already 2 years back, Francois, the workshops and capacity development and the task force there. These are issues that, even though they're hard to define, I think we sort of kind of know what to do when it comes to coordination. And the challenge is really the political will of the various stakeholders to actually step up to the plate and ensure that there is commonalities of vision and incentives that get all the stakeholders to contribute to a common goal. I've been, I think, a little bit fortunate actually to witness within the UN system our own transition from UNDP from a role of coordinator of the UN development system to now a role that is very different and that we understand as integration. in support of the coordination function of the resident coordinator at national level. And that's a question that we've had to ask ourselves. What did that mean to be a coordinator? And what do we do differently now that we're not the coordinators anymore? And I think that kind of reflection and thinking is the same that has to happen with the data world and the statistics world. Where the statistical, the national statistical offices really have to, I think, still play both of the roles of coordination and integration. I think it's a significant burden on the national statistical systems. But I think the important point for us, as we understand our integrator function as different from the coordination function, is actually how we combine different areas of policy to help advance the agenda, the SDGs. And I think this is something that is very relevant when it comes to data, because it's really about how we bring together different data sources, different data domains to add value for accelerated progress on the SDGs. And that's a role for which the national statistical offices really sit at the center of that national data ecosystems and all the data flows, particularly for SDG reporting. So, so their role in ensuring that that added value by combining different data domains, by combining different data sources, can really advance national policies. Is something that we need to look a bit deeper into that, and that's one of the issues that I really expect to see this group suggest some ways forward on that, because even within the UN family, I have to say that there is also a reconfiguration of how the UN system supports the coordination function for national statistical systems, because now in the UN country teams at national level, there is a dedicated capacity now that the UN has allocated in the resident coordinator office. There are data officers that are now going to be the interface with national statistical offices and help liaise when it comes to issues of SDGs and data for development, the engagements with development partners. So this is a role that is going to be super important, and I think it's a dimension of this work that we need to keep in mind. How the UN can also support national statistical offices in delivering that coordination function. My colleague Babatunde is there and is going to be the one really supporting this task team. So I hope that you also give him an opportunity to introduce himself, as he's new to the group, but he's going to be really the UNDP's face in the Paris 21 from here on. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. We hope we can keep your face for a bit more longer, if you don't mind. And lovely to see your colleagues. I'd like to give him the floor. Thanks so much, Serge, for articulating this narrative so brilliantly and linking to the previous joint work together. Babatunde, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thanks, Francois. Thanks, Serge. Now, so we definitely need to keep Serge's face longer, right? Because he has the history and the knowledge of the task force. I'm happy to be here. I'm Babatunde Abidoye. I'm the head of data analytics in SDG integration, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about what the task force does. And Serge just told us a little bit about the history and the discussions that have been ongoing before. And for me, it's always interesting to see how we can support the country offices and governments and different data that they're collecting and how they can respond to the information we need to track the SDGs, right? And how those can be collected with so many targets and goals that are there. It's not an easy task for any statistical office or government to collect those. So I'm looking forward to the discussions here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Babatunde, and looking forward to working together. Can I ask Jose Rosero, maybe from FAO? Jose, can you hear us? Oh, I think Jose has technical problems. We'll come back to you, Jose, in a minute. We have colleagues from Tanzania, right? I'm looking for you in my boxes. You may be on page 2. Can you please introduce yourself?
Mahadia Tunga, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me as well.
Yes,
apologies, I won't be able to like share my video. I can share my video. My network is not very good. As you know, today it's public holiday in Tanzania. We had election yesterday, so yeah. As regards to me, I'm Mahadia Tunga, co-founder of Tanzania Data Lab. I'm also the director for capacity development at Tanzania Data Lab. So Tanzania Data Lab is an NGO with the main mission of ensuring data is frequently and effectively used at different levels. And with regards with the interests of this task team, we are working with the National Bureau of Statistics in Tanzania. And we have been working from 2016 we have been working with Paris 21 in the task of identifying what are the gaps as regards to when it comes to reporting to the SDG indicators. And I remember we used ADAPT tool at that time, and we realized only 39% of the data that the National Bureau of Statistics is producing can respond to the SDG indicator. And that's where we decided to join hands and also bring in other actors like other ministries within the government, but also try to understand how can we use also other actors like non-state actors like the CSO, the private entities in filling in the gap. So that's where mostly we have encountered coordination challenges in mostly issues as regards to the trust, but also when we are trying to bring in the CSOs, also there is the issue of competition. I remember I worked with the World Wide Web Foundation, and I wrote a paper on how to engage the civil society organization. A lot of challenge that aspect, but in a nutshell, members what just that they have also faced there's resignation, but also I'm hoping with these task teams that could demonstrate a way on how we could be able to seamlessly coordinate among different partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahadia. And that's lovely to have you in the team as well. For the information of everyone, we did work together with the Data Lab, both to help the NSO in Tanzania reach out to users and coordinate with some of the critical user demands and reach out in terms of upstream data sourcing for the NBS and alignment of the questions, a bit in line with what Stefan was saying in the first place, whether the demands align all together. Thank you, Mahadia, and we hope the connection stays acceptable for you to contribute. I'd like to ask Jose. Jose, you have a second chance. I hope the connection in Rome is not too bad.
Hello, do you hear me, Francois?
Yes, very well, thanks.
No, look, apologies, and that's why I'm also not sharing my screen. So I am my screen. I am teleworking today, and somehow the day is particular because my connection is breaking at every single moment. So if I break, well, apologies in advance. But well, in any case, to introduce myself, I'm Jose Rosero Moncayo. I am the director of the Statistics Division of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO. I was a former chief statistician of my country, Ecuador. So in that sense, I have been in both sides. I've been in the sides of the countries, and I have been as well in the sides of international organizations. No, happy to be part of this group. Coordination is in the core, in the heart of the activities that we do either in international organizations or in national statistical offices. It is part of the core of our activities. From a national statistical point of view, I mean, one of the main duties is to coordinate the national statistical system. And that, of course, brings a lot of challenges that are important that we discuss, okay? That we make a pass on our activities and we discuss. So again, I'm very happy to be here and looking forward for the activities of the group. Over.
Thank you, Jose. Very useful to have you with both hats. You'll tell us when you speak under which hat, hopefully. So thank you very much. I think we have many more colleagues from Paris 21 and PSA. We may want to introduce Vera. Vera, please give us a few moments. Vera, you're still muted.
To everyone. My name is Vera Di Costo from Philippine Statistics Authority. I'm working as the OIC Assistant National Statistician of the Standard Service. I have worked previously with the National Statistical Coordination Board, and I think my main function for several years is coordinating with the Philippine statistical system. So I'm also very eager to share my experience on coordination with the task team members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vera. As you mentioned, the Philippines is widely known for an excellent coordination system, which took different forms, right, in the past in terms of centralization, with decentralization, with the NSCB, which you mentioned and you had the chance to work with. That's also why we decided in Paris 21 to propose this co-chairing to the Philippines, because they bring a lot of credibility and practical knowledge on this topic. So with this, I would like to thank you all very, very much for sharing your anecdotes and your expectations and a lot of materials and information already. I know my colleagues have been taking good notes of this input. That's really fantastic. I'd like to give the floor back to Benji from PSA, who will introduce Dr. Mapa for his presentation on the Philippines PSA side. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Dr. Dennis Mapa is currently the National Statistician and Civil Registrar General of the Philippine Statistics Authority, or the PSA. Prior to his appointment as National Statistician, he served as the Dean of the School of Statistics at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. To set the scene for our meeting today, Dr. Mapa will give us a brief but comprehensive presentation on the need for coordinated systems in 2020.
Okay, thank you very much, my friends and colleagues in the Paris 21 and task team members. First, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this important meeting as we discuss the key ingredients in statistics in these new times. Of course, we understand that management and coordination play a crucial role in support to the implementation, monitoring, and review of statistical development programs. Emerging developments in the country and society bring new demands for more relevant useful, and quality data. In the case of the Philippine Statistical System, which is a decentralized system comprising of statistical organizations at the administrative levels of government, its personnel, and the National Statistical Program. It requires strategic and coherent planning involving various stakeholders towards achieving a shared goal for better statistics, better policies, and better lives. In order for the Philippine Statistical System to effectively address the commitments, it must constantly coordinate with the international community and the development partners, our national data producers and users, and the local stakeholders. There is no international standard definition of coordination, and in the Philippines, coordination is a dynamic process that promotes effective interaction and collaboration among several actors to come up with a concerted effort toward achieving the common goal. It is the act of connecting and binding people or groups with common purpose to work together harmoniously, efficiently, and patiently to realize its objectives. It is the function of the management coordinator to ensure that all groups are in sync. If the people and organization in the country work together and pool their talents and resources towards a common goal, indeed, every mission can succeed. There are several coordination tools or mechanisms used to mobilize people and organization. However, one very important element of good coordination is the presence of a legal framework designating or authorizing a person or institution to carry out the coordination function. In the Philippines, the major coordination mechanism being employed by the Philippine Statistics Authority are those stipulated under Republic Act 10625, which provides the legal framework for the coordination of the Philippine Statistical System. One of this is the establishment of the Philippine Statistics Authority Board and the interagency committees that provide technical support to the functions of the board. The Philippine Statistics Authority Board serves as the highest policy-making body on statistical matters. It consists of all undersecretaries of key agencies in the government, which review and evaluate the proposed statistical policies recommended by its interagency committees. The interagency committee in turn coordinate and resolve agency and sectoral concerns on statistical matters by serving as venue for discussion on the issues raised by concerned producers, users, and other stakeholders of sectoral and agency-specific statistics. Issues resolved by the interagency committees are endorsed to the Philippine Statistics Authority Board for policy issuances. The Statistical Budget Review and Evaluation System is another strategic coordination mechanism that allows the Philippine Statistics Authority to review the statistical budget proposals of government agencies, and this to ensure that priority statistical activities are funded by the government and hence avoiding duplication of activities. Recognizing the limited fiscal space of most governments, especially in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic, statistical budget control is necessary in allocating limited government resources on statistics. Another important coordination mechanism in the Philippine Statistical System that ensures the quality of data produced by the government is our Statistical Survey Review and Clearance System. This aims to ensure conformity with standard definitions, concepts, and classifications, and consequently, the reliability, comparability, and accuracy of statistics generated out of the surveys and the censuses. Its specific objectives are to ensure sound design for data collection, minimizing burden placed upon respondents, effect economy in statistical data collection efforts, eliminate, very important, to eliminate unnecessary duplication of statistical data collected, and to achieve better coordination of government statistical activities. All statistical surveys and censuses which are sponsored
by government agencies, including government corporations, are going into the statistical review and clearance system, regardless of funding source or sample size. These surveys, which are conducted by government agencies for internal use, on the other hand, are exempted from review, provided these are neither published nor released to the general public. Coordination is built on effective interaction with people, wherein cooperation and trust relationships are gradually built. Advocacy activities and the celebration of the National Statistics Month and the conduct of the National Convention on Statistics also promote awareness and appreciation of statistics, enables sharing of knowledge and experiences, as well as strengthening collaboration among statistical agencies and professional statisticians. The linkages established from each coordination mechanism also help the Philippine Statistics Authority promptly respond to the emerging demands of its stakeholders during the pandemic. As an offshoot of bilateral discussion, the Philippine Statistics Authority was able to assist the Department of Health of our country through the provision of weekly data on the number of deaths and deaths by cause. The Philippine Statistics Authority was also able to expedite processing and releasing of death certificates and other civil registry documents of our medical frontliners who died due to the COVID pandemic. These documents are required for the issuance of financial assistance under our existing government policies. And through the coordination of our Department of Foreign Affairs, the Philippine Statistics Authority was able to provide the necessary civil registry documents to families of overseas Filipino workers despite the restriction in operations during our lockdown periods. While the Philippine Statistics Authority benefits from the efficacy of strong coordination, there are times when additional mechanisms need to be employed, such as when the Philippine Statistics Authority released its labor and employment statistics in August this year. In the Philippines, other national government agencies are also working on similar initiatives, employing different methods that may yield different results. When the Philippine Statistics Authority released unemployment statistics based on its quarterly labor force survey, our Department of Labor and Employment, in a press conference, deemed the figure too high. Hence, the interagency committees are in place to recommend possible solutions to resolve data-related issues, as these mechanisms sometimes fail to ensure the whole of government approach. Given the massive role of the Philippine Statistics Authority as the central statistical authority of the whole Philippine statistical system, it faces some challenges in the fulfillment of its mandate. For one, there is an emerging trend of big data. There is a lack of legal mandate for the Philippine Statistics Authority to have access to other agencies and private establishments' administrative data. The proposal here is to address this issue by endorsing to the Philippine Statistics Authority Board an executive order to be signed by the President of the Philippines, granting the Philippine Statistics Authority access to the needed data. In achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, there is a need to generate data with more disaggregation. And to resolve this concern, the Philippine Statistics Authority is improving its data production activities, one of which is the updating the existing core regional indicators. And as with the other national statistical offices, there is also a concern with sustaining availability of funding for statistical activities. The Philippine Statistics Authority addresses the matter by developing and integrating a medium-term expenditure framework for the whole Philippine statistical system and engaging the national statistical program partners in the project. The prevailing COVID-19 pandemic posed the most recent challenge to the effectiveness of statistical coordination and resilience of the national statistical organizations. Strict health protocols and huge health risks and danger associated with field data collection due to the COVID-19 pandemic has forced national statistical organization to further strengthen its national and local coordination mechanism in order to find alternative ways of data collection or find alternative sources of data. Thus, partnership not only within the government statistical system, but also with the private sector has become a necessity. In this regard, the Philippines started to broaden and extend its coordination to the private sector, including civil society organizations. The initial results are promising, but much has yet to be done, and this will require huge investment in statistics. A strong and effective management and coordination of the Philippine statistical system is therefore essential to provide an integrated and unified framework to collect and produce statistics generated by the various statistical units of the system. With the present challenges faced by all national statistical systems, the advent of big data and how to harness its potential for official statistics, the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and its unprecedented demand for disaggregated data, and the lack of funding to explore new data sources, the need for coordinated data system is more crucial than ever. Thank you very much and have a good day to all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mapa. Your presentation has certainly given us a
Benji, we don't hear you anymore. I think the audio is disrupted.
At this moment, we will now shift our focus on the background note which was circulated beforehand. The document contains an analysis of the coordination, including key points, its definition, the various levels, and both internal and external actors. So to facilitate the group, may I now call on Julia and Guillermo from Paris 21 to lead us in this for this part. Thank you.
Thank you, Benji. Thank you, Dr. Mapa, for this really impressive introduction and the importance of coordination in new data ecosystems in 2020. My colleague and I, Guillermo, we will quickly give you all just an overview of the background note that we have been preparing and just the toolkit to start into the breakout. We know we are a bit behind in timing, so bear with us. We will be very short. It's really just a kickstart here. And with no further ado, I will hand over to Guillermo first. He will go a bit into the definitions and the levels, and then I will just quickly go over the actors that we want to maybe reflect upon in 2 minutes. So Guillermo, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Julia. Thank you everybody to be participating in this task team. So let me immediately start by giving you a flavor of the main elements that characterize the background note that we have drafted and circulated in advance. And in particular, I will focus on the definitions, various definitions of coordination that we have collected and different levels and the inputs of coordination, and then give the floor to Julia. So first of all, it is essential to understand what coordination is and the main features that characterize coordination. So we have conducted this extensive literature review in order to collect them. And here I'm showing just some prototypes that have been clustered in order to understand how big is the plethora of different definitions of coordination. So the most relevant is the definition of statistical coordination provided by Feleggi, that in the characteristics of an effective statistical system defines coordination as a process that enables the components of the statistical system to act as a coherent system, where coherence is ensured by the fact of mobilizing resources in an effective manner and exploiting synergies and efficiency. So the additional 3 dimensions along which coordination is structured are first, coordination as a dialogue between producers and users in order to better manage their needs, and also between producers themselves in order to create cost efficiency. And avoid duplication and ensure comparability and harmonization of efforts. Second definition of coordination can be followed as the analysis of procedural standards and guidelines on a various set of activities and areas that include surveys, terminologies, classification, and methodologies. And finally, coordination can also work as a quality monitor when we refer to those activities that ensure meeting the relevant quality standards. So here I don't, they are not reported them, but the coordination also enters in the structural activities of business process models. And an example is the GAMSO, where coordination capacity can contribute to enhance shared statistical capabilities and maintain the quality of statistical products. So we have seen with the empirical evidence that you provided us and also the Paris 21 surveys that the challenges of coordination are structured along all the data value chain and involve different actors and elements. So what needs to be coordinated? We try here to summarize 6 of the main elements that fall into the area of interest for statistical coordination. And the most important is the legal framework, in premise with the statistical law that should provide the foundation, the legal foundation for coordination being assigned to a specific entity and assigning the coordination mandate. The second element and input for coordination is new data types. We have seen also with your you witnessing how these new data types and new data sources are difficult to be managed, harmonized, and used, and being involved in the production of official statistics. And also, in a third instance, all the role of the financial resources that come both from the domestic and external point of view, and how this can be aligned and allocated in an effective manner. Human resources was in the survey results that you were plotting one of the most important challenges to coordination, and how this can be coordinated through, for example, secondment phenomenon and so on, being able so that each one in the staff has his own role and the specific skills in order to accomplish and achieve tasks. And finally, coordination is needed in order to meet the rising data users' demand with timely and accurate data. We have witnessed many of what you have experienced directly. And finally, the last input of coordination regards the alignment of international and national policy frameworks. So let me very briefly identify 5 of the the main geographical levels along which statistical coordination occurs. This is some sort of vertical identification of levels that starts from the more general and encompassing level, which is the international level of coordination that is executed by the UNSC and provides guidance on the setting of statistical standards and development of methods. The regional level occurs across countries that are embedded through political, economic, and geographical reasons, and can contribute to the development of regional statistics and national statistics in member states and promote the harmonization of them and of the methodologies among them. Sub-regional level has a similar role. Sub-regional level coordination has a similar role, and it contributes to the alignment of regional, sub-regional, and national statistical activities. The national level is perhaps the widest one. It regards both actors that will be presented in a minute. Within the NSS, as the statistical office and other entities such as the statistical councils, line ministries, the national central banks, and other actors that are in our mindset outside, external actors outside from the NSS, and involve civil society organizations, academia, media, and private sector. Finally, the finest levels of coordination is the subnational levels of coordination, which very much depends on the structure of the NSS being centralized or decentralized, and it mainly concerns the comparability of statistics and the harmonization of them between the subnational and national levels. So let me stop here and turn it over to Julia to continue the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guillermo. So exactly. So we'll just continue quickly explaining a couple of more actors in the statistical system. Very important, again, to mention, this is all suggestion from our side. This is a kind of a mental framework to structure our thinking. None of this is exhaustive, and it's all open and up for debate. And this is very important. This is also what we have emphasized throughout the background note. As you've seen, we follow here a bit the structure. This is really the core where we want to also see where we have different opinions on and what we consider relevant for coordination. So to test a bit the priorities. Regarding the actors, I think Guillermo has already mentioned it very profoundly, and also Dr. Mapa has elaborated on them, what we picked as the priority actors in the national statistical system, but of course it differs, and it depends very much on the law that is at the core of the statistical system. We see the National Statistical Office as the center. We have heard from Stefan Verhulst and Cara Williams, the NSO should be empowered to be the data steward of the NSS. I think certainly something we should explore here. Similarly, we see the chief statistician as having a special role, especially responsible for leadership and management of external relations. And of course, also the overall planning and program of work. But we know that also this mandate can change. Then we have the National Statistical Council, which usually is in place to advise the NSS and the government, and also implements or provides advisory on the implementation of the statistical work program, mostly consisting of users and producers. And then we have the range of line ministries and governmental agencies and the central bank. Let me quickly go to the actors outside the NSS. I think here is, we just want to also point at a few. Public sector data producers, we have as much as private sector producers in the space of what we call big data, so space agencies, meteorological services, geospatial data. But you also have, of course, the private sector entities where you have credit card data, mobile phone data, all of this, what we call or put under this umbrella of big data. Then we see an important actor, the research and academia, not only in data collection, but also in the use of statistics, as Luca has pointed out, for example, and the co-design at some point, or the co-analysis of data, it really depends. And we have civil society organizations, as mentioned by Tanzania as well, on especially citizen-generated data. But again, this can also go beyond that and lead to a joint use or joint co-creation of data and contributes to disaggregation, the important topic that we have touched upon a couple of times now. Then finally, also part of the group work, development cooperation partners, most important in funding, but of course also in the monitoring and evaluation frameworks, and the users, another group of users, the media, which are in most cases users. I learned in some cases also producers, for example, in Sweden, and of course important when we talk about statistical literacy, but also general coordination. With that, we just want to end on two things. One is potential outcomes. And I mean, what you maybe can already see from our presentation, we shift from inputs to certain elements, levels, actors to outcomes. And this is what we want to drive you to, or like give you some guidance on to think about this like flow as a process, as a dynamic process. Coordination as a dynamic process leads to some outcomes. And I think this is where we want to get at. We want to go away from the static idea of coordination towards this dynamic idea. And this is why we want to think about the ultimate goal, basically. So we definitely know also from the research we did, but based on the submissions from your end, that data gaps is a core issue that we want to solve through coordination. We also want to integrate new technologies and digitalization in the production and dissemination processes. Thirdly, communication is core, linked to literacy. And then finally, we want to structure and institutionalize international funding and cost-effective budget allocation. And finally, improve this data stewardship. How we want to unpack this is up to us now. And I think with this, I think we can directly move, I think, to the group work, to the next step in the breakout. We want to now map a bit these inputs and levels and actors with you together to different coordination problems. And then next time we meet, we want to go and look at coordination mechanisms. So without further ado, I would suggest that I give it quickly back to Benji, the floor, to announce the group work, and then we explain the group work in more detail before you are sent in the different breakout rooms. Benji, please.
Okay, so thank you, Julia and Guillermo, for your respective presentations. Indeed, your inputs are a big help to help us discuss more closely the challenges which we face in statistical coordination. Okay. Yes. Julia, may we show the slide to help the participants on the guidelines?
Yes. So we will be very quick. We will explain that also in the groups again. We know we are a bit behind the time. If it's fine for you, we would suggest to cut the group work by 10 minutes. So we will only have 20 minutes now in the groups. Yeah. The groups will be co-facilitated by one representative of Paris 21 and one representative of PSA. We will have 3 groups, and each group has a team leader who contributes to the discussion, of course, and who then also represents the results in the plenary. In the end, we will support them. We have slides pre-made, so don't worry about that. And the facilitators will also moderate the discussion and take notes. So basically, please just focus on the discussion and immerse yourself in the topic. Our suggestion for the group allocation, and please bear with us if it's not exactly now the turnout, we had some last minute changes, but the idea is we have 3 groups. Group 1 on alignment, international frameworks and national frameworks. Group 2 on data gaps and coordination inside the NSS and outside the NSS. And Group 3 on donor coordination. We are more people than we expected, so please be mindful with the time. You will be now sent in this, like, you don't have to do anything. We will go basically directly into the group works. You can lean back just before you leave. A quick, the objective is really that we focus now on the following. You get a situation that will be explained to you by the facilitator. And then we will talk about the inputs, the levels, and the coordination with actors for the group work. We hope this works in a virtual format. We have good experience with that. And I think my colleague Leticia will now send us all to the respective smaller groups. And we hope that you can stick with us a little bit longer so that we finish in 3:15, because we would like to report back in the plenary afterwards for 10 minutes. So we hope this will be possible. And apologies for being a bit over time here. And yeah, I think we can just wait for the shift in the group work. You should now join the breakout room that is proposed to you, please.